In New Hampshire, AARP works to bring you informative, innovative, and fun virtual events like today's online cook-along demonstration as a means of connection and inclusion. AARP has numerous free healthy living resources on its website, which include staying fit, wellness and longevity, information on healthy eating, as well as staying sharp. There is something for everyone. I'll put a link in the chat. Chef Liz built her cooking career in various Boston catering and restaurant venues. After starting her family, she re-entered the food world as a cooking instructor and developed Liz Barbour's Creative Feast. Chef Liz has appeared on New Hampshire's WMUR Cook's Corner. Her cooking demonstrations and recipes and herb gardens have been featured in various publications, including Where Women Cook, New Hampshire Magazine, the Nashua Telegraph, and the Hippo Press. All her programs focus on the premise that we are healthier when we cook at home. We hope you enjoy today's program, and Liz, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda. And thank you, everybody, for joining me. I'm so delighted to have you here with me in my studio kitchen in Hollis, New Hampshire. I know that a lot of you are joining us from across the country, so that's always very exciting. Today we are talking about Thanksgiving sides. I know that, you might say, why aren't we doing turkey? I think that turkey for most of us is actually pretty straightforward. You just pick a method that you're going to try this year, because a lot of us try different methods from year to year. But it's the side dishes that people, offers you variety in your meal. And I also know that a lot of us like very traditional dishes. They are recipes that your family you've been serving your family for years, or they have always been served at your mother's table, and you like to carry on that tradition. But I do love to, on my own table, bring in every once in a while a new dish that people will enjoy. And also, it gives you kind of an opportunity to try a new cooking method, or even to take a dish that may have been a regular menu item over the years and change it up a little. So one of our dishes is going to be that change up. So rather than, for example, regular mashed potatoes, I'm going to be showing you how to use celeriac, which is basically, it tastes like celery. It's like a big celery root. It is not celery root though, so that's different. The stalks of celery are very different when you grow this in your garden. It's a very knobby, kind of ugly looking vegetable. It is the root of the vegetable, and mainly greens grow above ground. But it has a really wonderful, bright flavor. And when you mix that with mashed potatoes or cook it with your potatoes, you get the creaminess of the mashed potatoes, but you also get that wonderful lighter flavor with that celeriac root. And so I'm going to actually start with that. But before I get started, the second dish is a takeoff on a potatoes au gratin. So, which is layered sliced potatoes with Gruyere cheese or whatever cheese your family likes, and a little bit of salt and pepper. It's a very simple dish. It does have some cream in it. In this case, we're using half and half, but you can certainly substitute cream. But what we're doing with this dish is that we're creating a beautiful color, almost like a rainbow within the dish. So that one I'm really excited for. So I'm going to show you that. But that's going to be our second one, because we're not going to have time to bake it from start to finish during the class. But of course, I pre-baked one for you so you can see the end result. But the labor intensive part of this is, getting the vegetables ready and putting it all together. But I promise you, the great thing about this dish is that you can do this in advance, and you can freeze it and then thaw it out and warm it up. Or you can, get some of the vegetables ready in advance so that you're really just putting it all together right before you bake it. So there's lots of good options. So let me just put this off to the side. And as Linda mentioned, you are welcome to ask me any questions throughout the class. She will interrupt me to make sure that I get to those questions while we're on the topic. So let's, before we get started, let me just take you to my website. I'm going to share my website with you. And let's see, here we go. And so this is my website. It's the Creative Feast. And there are a lot of recipes here for you to enjoy. So I do encourage you to check that out. You can look at programs if you are interested in having me do a program. I'm just doing lecture programs in person right now. But if you go over to where it says Food and Fun on the recipe blog, I have a special place for AARP members where it says AARP 2024 cook along. I also, you see here, I have the 2023 cook along. So those are all the recipes from 2023. So you will see different recipes for this class from the year previously. But let's go to our recipes for today. Just so you know where to find them, you just scroll down here and then you will see our rainbow layered vegetable gratin and the creamed celeriac and potatoes. So those are your recipes there, super easy to find. Also, I know on AARP, you can sign up for our next class, which is on the 17th of December. And this is a low carb holiday brunch. So you'll really enjoy that. And you can see those recipes there. But if we go again over to the recipe blog, here you're going to see a lot of recipes from all of my classes. But if you scooch down here on the right-hand side, just go ahead and scroll down, you will see Thanksgiving. And here are so many recipes for Thanksgiving. This is a wonderful takeoff on what we're going to do today. Really a lot less labor intensive, but still has a wonderful, delicious, easy bake recipe. So you can try that. There's cranberry whiskey, cranberry sour if you want a cocktail, mashed potatoes, so on and on, even all the way down. And if I have time today, I will show you how to make my favorite cranberry sauce. That's the very last recipe on this page. It's super easy. Once you have this, you'll never have another cranberry sauce. So that is there for you as well. And so that's, an opportunity for you to explore if you're somebody who is interested in intermittent fasting under the Food and Fun. I have a guide on helping you get started. You're always welcome to email me if you have questions. I've been an intermittent faster now for probably 8 years. I'll never go back to eating the way I did before, and it helped me lose weight and keep the weight off and keep a level of energy all the time. So it's really been almost like the fountain of youth, if I may. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this recipe started. I'm going to bring this up on my laptop because I like to make sure that I've got all of the ingredients and everything ready just as I had printed. So first things first is we're going to get our vegetables ready. And as I mentioned, I'm just going to be peeling this. The celeriac bulb is really kind of, it's very knobby. And let's see, this light is terrible. Let me see if I can bring in a little bit more light over here without, it just seems so dark. Okay, so we have our celery root. Oh, it's still dark. Sorry, I want to adjust. I don't want us to miss out on anything. And it could be because we're a little bit overcast today. And that could be an issue. Okay. So we've got you want to have a good peeler. All right. And then you're just going to peel this. And it's just a light skin. So you want to take that off. And this is you want to make sure that the celery root that you're getting or the celeriac is nice and firm. And store it in your refrigerator so it stays nice and firm. And then you're just going to peel that, and then we're going to go ahead and slice it into cubes. And you want them to be about the same size as the potatoes you cut. And we know the smaller you cut your vegetables, the faster they will cook. So that's something to always keep in mind. And, having them cut in the same size, if they're the same density, will make a difference too. But we do want to cook vegetables together initially that are the same density. So for example, cooking the celeriac with the potatoes makes sense. But then cooking at the same time a vegetable like your green beans, for example, if you're going to, do them all at the same time, the green beans would way overcook before these two things do. So you want to keep that in mind. All right. And I'm just going to finish that up. I've got a little bit of the root here that's kind of tough to get around. You can see some of that. So I'll just cut that out a little bit. And then I'm going to run it through underwater, because by releasing some of that root, there was some dirt in there. So I'm just going to rinse this off. All of these peelings are going to go out for my chickens. They're going to love their afternoon snack. Get that
Liz,
all
we
set.
have a question. If you're not able
Yep.
to get celeriac in the grocery store, if you can't find it, is there a substitute? Can you substitute something? Someone suggested maybe leeks.
Leeks would be delicious. And use mostly the white part. The green part is going to be a little bit tough, but yes, the leeks would be very nice. I'm trying to think what else you could use. Oh, parsnips might be something that you'd like to use. They would give a nice sweetness to it. But if you have the chance, if you do have, a couple of grocery stores, you could call and find out if they have them. The celeriac is a really nice alternative. But here's another thing you could do. You could buy a good bunch of celery and take the leaves off the celery and use those. So say you're going to make, you don't have celeriac, right? And you could add your leeks and you could cook them together. And then to finish off the dish, chop up your celery leaves and use a huge handful. Do not be shy. Chop those up and pop them into your, your finished mashed potatoes with leeks, and then chop up your celeriac or your celery leaves while the potatoes are still hot, and then you can blend them in, and then you'll get the aromatics from the celery leaves. So that would be a really great alternative. So thank you for bringing that up. Always, kind of when I'm talking to people, that's when I get these great ideas. So your questions prompt a lot of good thinking. Did you have any other questions?
Let's see. I don't think so.
Okay, all right, that's great. Now I'm cutting these into smaller pieces. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going to show you how I'm doing it in the second one. You always want to create a flat surface when you are cutting, so that you're not rolling around and taking a chance of cutting yourself. So what I did was I cut that celeriac root in half, right? And then I sliced it down through. And so you can see these are all different slices. And then I'm going to take a couple and just lay them over on their sides, cut them again. Okay. And then turn it and cut it this way. And then they're all pretty much the same size. And it's a really nice methodical way to work. Once you get into that that mode of, a very methodical way of doing it, you get the pattern going, you get the muscle memory, and things just happen that much faster. Now I've got a nice stock pot here that I'm going to cook these in. And so we're just going to pop that into our pot, and then we're going to do our potatoes. Now, yellow, I love the Yukon Gold potatoes because they're very creamy and buttery, and they have a light yellow color to them. You can use red potatoes if that's what's available. I would not use like a baking potato, because that's going to be very starchy. And I tell you what, I don't even bother to peel them because they cook really well and they just add another level of color and texture to the dish. So that's me. But if you're somebody who really likes to have your potatoes peeled, then go right ahead and do that. So again, we're going to cut these in half. All right. What I wouldn't use is I would not use potatoes that are purple fleshed. This is not the dish for that. Although the next dish, if you had those wonderful purple fleshed potatoes, you could use them in that layered dish, and that would just add a whole other color to that that dish, if that's what you'd like. All right. So now again, just like the celeriac, I'm going to cut this into slices and then into cubes. Potatoes seem to be a little less dense than the celery root. Just cut them into basically the same size pieces so they cook in the same amount of time. We are going to mash them so they don't have to be super pretty. Nothing to worry about there. And this dish, you could definitely make, you know, a few hours ahead of time, and just keep them warm in an oven if you'd like. You don't want them to dry out. You could add some heavy cream at the end, you know, heated heavy cream, and that would be a nice way to finish off the dish as well. Now this is going into our pot. All right, so we have our potatoes. We're using about 1.5 pounds of each. So this is 50-50, right? And then we have our 4 tablespoons of butter. And we have our 2 garlic cloves. Now I just wanted to make sure, add the celery root, tomato, garlic, stock, water, bring to the boil. So in goes our butter. That's 4 tablespoons, salted, unsalted, whatever you want to use. We're going to do our garlic. All right, and this is fresh garlic from my garden. For those of you who are gardeners, make sure you get that garlic in the ground. For those of us in New Hampshire, it's been really pretty warm, so you still have time to get the garlic into the ground for next spring. Don't use garlic from the grocery store though, because you don't know where that's grown, and that could have GMOs and all of that. There are still places on the internet that have garlic cloves for planting. You could check with your local farm stand too to see if they have garlic that they grew themselves, and then you could buy that and use that. So we're going to just give that a good smash. You could chop this up fine if you want. Again, it's going to cook with the potatoes and the celery root, and it's going to add flavor. And then once you mash it all together, it's going to, you know, break up into pieces anyway. So that is easy. And you can add more garlic if you want, whichever you'd like. Those were pretty large cloves of garlic. And then we're going to add in, you can use a cup of chicken stock, or in this case, I'm going to just use water. You could use a vegetable stock if you'd like, that's fine. And then we're going to, let's see, we've got the celery root, the potatoes, the garlic, the stock, our water. And then we're going to bring that to a simmer, and then we're going to reduce it and cook that until they're fork tender. And there is a very little water, so they're essentially going to steam in that water. All right. So I'm going to do this over on the stove. You don't need to watch my potatoes boil or the vegetables boil. So I'm just going to do that off camera and keep a good eye on it. I'm going to set myself a timer so that I don't forget what's going on and get too involved in the conversation. And then once the everything has cooked to be fork tender, you want it to be nice and tender, then you're going to mash those, and you can stir in the warmed cream. In this case, we're just going to stir in some heavy cream into the finish. If you want to add butter, you can, salt and pepper. So we'll finish that up together. I've got my scallions here. I'll go ahead and chop these up in advance so that we are ready with these. And I like to use the top green part. This is going to add a lot of nice color. If you want, you can add in some parsley if you like, or you can add in some celery leaves. That would be another way to heighten that flavor. But we've got those all chopped up and ready to go. Okay, so I'm just going to set those aside. And now it's time to go ahead and get our second recipe going. Linda, before we get going on that, do we have any other questions about the celery root, and mashed potato. I want to get my masher out of here.
Someone is saying that you would want the hard neck variety of garlic. Let's see,
Yes,
in New
yes,
Hampshire.
yep. Because and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's because it overwinters better than the soft neck. So and those will start coming up almost immediately in the spring. And it's really beautiful. I like to do as many as I can. I had a really nice crop of garlic this year. They just didn't get very large, so that probably has to do with my soil. So I really have to amend for the next year for sure. Okay, so let's get started on our next recipe. And this is the one, as I said, the rainbow um, uh, vegetable au gratin. It's a little bit time consuming. So you want to get yourself set up for success. So what you can do is, as I mentioned in the notes for this recipe, you can prep some of this in advance. So for example, let me just bring this up. See if I can enlarge this for myself. There we go.
And then Liz, someone
yes.
is asking about the cranberry sauce recipe that if you have time at the end, you'll be making.
Yeah.
Is that recipe on your website as well?
Yes, as I said, if you go onto let me just show you one more time, just to make sure that we have that for everybody.
We had a few late joiners and they're just asking.
That's okay. I'm going to share the website with you, and I'm going to take you through that. Hold on one sec. I've got to move over here, and then that's not what I want to share with you. I want to share the recipe blog. Okay, so the recipe blog is go way up to the top here at the Creative Feast. And if you go over to where it says Food and Fun Recipe Blog and hit that, and then we go over here to the side, to the right-hand side where it says Thanksgiving. And you click on that, and that will give you many, many more Thanksgiving recipes, including an easier version of the au gratin that we're going to do. It's just with butternut squash rather than a bunch of different root vegetables. So that's a little bit easier to do, but still has that wonderful flavor. And then I do have information here on roasting a turkey breast. You don't have to do a full turkey. So you can do that. You can do here's that roll. Oh, here's a low carb answer to mashed potatoes. So this is mashed cauliflower. If somebody's interested in doing that, that's super easy. But anyway, going all the way down to the bottom is where you're going to find that cran raspberry sauce. So that's there, but you can also put that into the search bar and just put in cranberries, and that will pop up. So that I try to make that as simple as possible for you. Okay, so let me go back, and I am going to bring my recipe in front of me just to make sure that I have it there. Okay, so we are going to start with, we do need to melt a little bit of butter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a little saucepan here, just make it easy on myself rather than going into where my microwave is. And I'm going to melt this butter. And this is going to be added to, we're going to make almost like a flavored cream. And that cream will be poured over the vegetable. So we're going to go ahead and get that all set. We're also going to pre-slice some of our vegetables to get them ready. What I'm using to slice my vegetables is a mandolin. And this is an amazing tool. I know I personally had always been a little bit of afraid of it because it is, it's very sharp. You have to be careful of it, but you do want to get a good quality one. You can get, plastic ones. You can get very inexpensive ones. Just make sure it's super sturdy. If it is plastic, it has to be a really tough plastic because you are going to be putting some pressure on the slide. We do have an open blade here. Your mandolin will come with a guard. I'm a bad girl. I don't like to use it because it just gets in my way, but I've been using one for years. So you can have to be careful. You can, of course, use a knife and cut these vegetables thin. They want to be about 1/4 inch to 1/8 of an inch thin, super thin. The thinner they are, the easier they will cook, the more evenly they will cook. Excuse me. But make sure your knife is sharp. It's just not going to work if you have a dull knife. So make sure that you're sharpening your knives and that you use that to slice your vegetables. But I'm going to go ahead and do it the easy way. Now, we can pre-slice our potatoes. And if you wanted to pre-slice your potatoes the day before, you can do that. Just make sure they're covered in cold water in the refrigerator, and then they won't blacken, okay? But if you're doing this, just, working and you've got a couple hours to go, again, just, cover it in water. But if you're doing it all at one time, you don't have to cover them in water because you're going to get them into the pan fairly quickly. So let me just, I've got my butter is melted. All right, so now I'm going to slice. So I want to preset my slice so that I'm slicing this at about a 1/4 inch. Of course, watch this. While I'm on camera, this will be the first time in a while that I've cut myself. So notice I've taken a paper towel. You could use a regular towel. I like to do this just to grip my vegetable and just go nice and slow when you get towards the end. And then I don't need to use the end of that. And then I'm just going to put that into my bowl. Okay. So this recipe that I've given you is great. It will give you plenty of vegetables for an 8 by 8 inch pan or a 9 by 9. And you could put it into, a square pan, or if you want, you could put it into a round cake pan. Or if you really want, and I think I'm going to do this today, let me just go grab one of my cast iron pans. I'm going to be putting this into, I'm coming in front of the camera, my cast iron pan that is a good 12 inches, but it's not super deep. So I'm going to be doing that today. You can use a smaller rectangular flat, La Crusette or something like that. But if you're going to use something as big as a 9 by 13 pan, you want to almost, double the recipe, because this is a nice thick end result. So it gets nice and high. And you want to make sure that you have good high size in the pan that you're using. The other thing that I learned is you have to be careful. Now, you could say, well, I don't want to double it, but I'd like to do it in a 9 by 13 pan anyway. I did that, and it cooks much faster because there is much more surface area, and the faster cooking could make it brown up more. So you want to be careful about that. It's better to do it on the thick side and cook for the right amount of time at the right temperature. If you insist on doing, enough vegetables to go in an 8 by 8, and you want to make it in a 9 by 13, just lower the temperature of your oven down to 325 and cook that for an hour and a half. So the lower, slower cooking temperature will help it to cook a little bit more easily without browning. So that's just a little bit of a tip. Okay, so I've got my potatoes here, and I'm going to season them. Now, what I've done, each one of these steps, each of our vegetables are going to be in their own bowl. Okay, so I'm going to season this on its, so it's evenly seasoned. And what I've done is I've mixed my salt and pepper, 2 parts salt to 1 part pepper, and then go ahead and toss this together. Okay, and so now I know that all of my potatoes are going to be evenly seasoned. All right, and now I'm just going to set those aside because I've got more vegetables to work on. Okay, so the next vegetable I'm going to do, we are going to do beef, but I'm going to save them to the end because I don't want my fingers to get super red before we even get started. And then I'm looking for my sweet potato. I don't know what the heck I did with that. I know I have it. I'm going to have to go, oh, I see, it's in a bowl. I set it off aside. So we've got our sweet potato too. Okay. Now this is butternut squash. So this is the neck of a butternut squash. When I buy butternut squash, I try to buy it with a long neck. And that way it's so much easier to prepare. And then I just peeled the neck with a potato peeler or vegetable peeler. And now I'm just slicing it the same thickness that I did my potatoes. And you could, if you wanted to, if you have a neck, say you have a sweet potato and the neck is really, really round, right? This one was just about that round. If it's like that, you can cut it in half and then slice it, and that will, give you a few more slices. Get my little guard here with my paper towel, just so I can get, now this one's getting a little tough to do. So again, this is where it's really important you have a nice sharp knife. We're going to go ahead and slice that. Well, that's getting a little dicey. You can slice it like this. Again, just be very careful. Sometimes, especially with a butternut squash and potatoes, they actually have some starch in them and they get real sticky, right? So you want to make sure that you're being very careful and going nice and slow with that. So there's our butternut squash. Pop that in. All right, and then you can season that. I love having a pre-mixed salt and pepper in a jar. So in this jar, it's 2 parts salt to 1 part pepper. I pre-mix it, and then I know exactly what I'm getting. It's fresh. You can even use fresh ground pepper, although I have I try to buy a good quality already cracked pepper, so that works out beautifully. But now they're all seasoned super easy. Okay, so these will go off and you can start to see the rainbow building behind me. And then we have our sweet potato. So again, we're going to peel our sweet potato here. And we're going to use this. Now, as I mentioned before, if you are lucky and you have a store nearby, I know Whole Foods here in New Hampshire occasionally carries these beautiful, really beautiful purple fleshed potatoes. I believe they're a Japanese potato. And you could use those either in addition or in the place of, your white potatoes if you want, or your sweet potatoes because they're going to be on the sweeter side. So maybe you'd replace this orange sweet potato with the purple. You could do that. You can have fun with this because it's all about the color and these wonderful root vegetables that are naturally a little on the sweet side, and then you add the salt and pepper and they're going to make that more savory. Okay, now here's my sweet potato. I am going to cut this in half because it is really kind of heavy on the bottom and might be difficult to get through my mandolin. So just by slicing it makes it so much easier to grab and just slide it through on the mandolin. This is such a great tool. Now, a lot of people are really good about using their food processors. It actually will have a blade on there where you can do something like that, like this, but it doesn't work so well for the larger vegetables. Nice and easy. Everything is the same. I also use this a lot. I make a lot of fermented sauerkraut myself. So I use my mandolin often for that. Okay, that is my timer. I'm just going to come over and I'm checking my potatoes and my celery root, and I'm just going to lower down the temperature a little bit and let that simmer. And that's going to go for about another 10 minutes, and then I'll come and check it one more time. And actually, the potatoes and the celery root have, they have water in them, vegetables, and there's steam. So that is protecting it from burning. Okay, I'm done with this potato. I don't want to have cut me, so I want to be careful about that. And then these are going to go, I think I'll put them into this larger bowl and do a little bit of salt and pepper, and we're almost done with these vegetables. So you can see how the time-consuming part here really is just getting these ready. A bit of salt and pepper. Toss that. All set. Back with our others. And then the final vegetable that we're going to do is our beef. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this you can cut all of them on top of a baking pan if you'd like. I'm just going to make sure that I do my beets so that I don't stain my cutting board. Now, got this. And then this is going to get a nice slice. So I did peel my beets. They are raw. Okay. And they are going to be at the bottom of this, and they're going to be so beautiful. Wait till you see the end result. It's a really pretty stacked recipe. It's so lovely. And it's one of those showstoppers at the table where you come up with something so colorful and so easy to make. It looks so difficult, but I think you can see it's just a matter of being time consuming. So there are beautiful red beets.
So Liz, we have a couple
Yep.
questions. One is there a suggestion for a substitute for beets? And then another one is, can you use orange or yellow beets?
You can use orange or yellow beets, but you're going to lose that rainbow effect, right? Because then everything else, I mean, if you wanted to all be orange and yellow, absolutely, you can use those. But the red adds a really dramatic color to it. So what could you use instead? Like we said, you could use that different color. Sweet potato would be nice. You could use, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, what root vegetables. Oh, you could use rutabaga if you wanted to. You could use carrots if you wanted to. Just make sure they're sliced. They need to be sliced even thinner than the beets because they tend to be more dense. So you could use those. I know for a lot of people, the beets are one of those things where it's like, oh, I just don't like that flavor. It's a really earthy flavor. And I'll tell you, my husband doesn't like beets. But there's only one layer of them. And when it's mixed with other vegetables and the cheese and the seasonings, he's fine with it. So, just remember the beets are a very small part of this, but they are the wow factor. And I put them on the bottom too, so that when you serve it, if somebody doesn't want the beets, they can just take them off the bottom and eat the rest. So that works out too. So I always suggest that people be a little bit adventurous when they're thinking about this kind of thing. So do we have any other questions?
Well, somebody was helpful in that they said that there are gloves that you can get, that there are cut-proof kitchen gloves that you can use with a mandolin.
Yes.
And somebody, I guess, has bought those and has tried them.
Oh, good, good. Yes, you can definitely. I mean, you should. This is the one time where I say, don't do what I do. And that's because I just find them so cumbersome. And I think sometimes, and here's again, you watch out. Oftentimes I can be in too much of a hurry, right? So we don't want that to be an issue. Now, again, I told you I'm going to use my cast iron pan because it's going to be beautiful. But I've got this, square 8-inch pan. A 9-inch cake pan would be fine for this. I will tell, as I mentioned before, if you're going to use a 9 by 13 pan, you need to double the recipe in order to fill it properly. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So we've buttered that. Now I have my butter here. I'm going to mix this with, it says half and half. You can use half and half and heavy cream if you'd like together. I'm just going to get a little whisk. So you can do that. Milk isn't going to do it for you because it just doesn't have as much richness to it. But you do want to use, full fat to get that richness. But that's what I'm telling you, what you do in the privacy of your own home when it comes to how much fat and stuff you use. That's entirely up to you. All right. So now we have our half and half. I'm going to, we've got this buttered. I'm just going to set this aside. We've got garlic cloves. We want to add a lot of nice flavor in this. So I am going to, I'm only using 3 just because they're so big. But still, the flavor is not overwhelming, so that's nice. Oh, I got a little blemish on this one. Again, these are from my own garden, so they're not going to be perfect. But they are flavorful. Boy, I can smell the fresh garlic, your own garlic. There's something about that. And I love that I know where it came from and what was in the soil and all of that. All right. Then I have one of my favorite tools. This is called a garlic rocker. You can get this on Amazon. I think they're like 12 bucks. But boy, do they make a difference when you are mincing your garlic. You just put it, and you don't have to get your hands involved at all. It just takes a little bit of muscle to just press down on that. And then I just take the back of my knife and put them right in with my cream. Super easy. Keeping an eye on our mashed vegetables over there. There we go. And yes, there are some green in there. It doesn't bother me. It's going to be boiled. You know, if you're a purist and cooking with them, sauteing with them, they might have a little bit of bitterness to them. But for me, I'm just going to pop them in there, not worry so much about that. Okay. Now we have our garlic, our cream, our butter, and now we're going to add some nutmeg. I like to use fresh nutmeg. This is a little nutmeg grater. And so add that in. Something about the finish of the nutmeg makes it really complete. You can use, of course, you know, regular ground nutmeg that's pre-ground, that's fine. Don't need too much, although you don't want to overwhelm this with nutmeg. Okay, great. And so we have our nutmeg, we're going to add some, a little bit of kosher salt, a little bit of pepper. Again, just going to add a little bit of that in there. All right. And then we're going to get our cheeses ready. So here is our our cream finish. Oh, the other thing we're going to add to this is fresh thyme. So as I mentioned to you before, the weather's been so good that I can go out to my garden and grab some thyme. So, but if you're going to use dried thyme, just use half of the amount in the recipe, because the dried herbs tend to be a little bit more intense. So I just pull that right off the stem. If you wanted to use rosemary, you can. You don't need nearly as much. Probably I would use about a teaspoon of rosemary if you wanted to substitute that for the thyme. You could do that. Give that a good chop. And in that goes. And this is going to be poured on top of everything. So that's our cream. And then, oh, our cheese blend. Okay, so Gruyere cheese is the king of cheeses for this. I just need another bowl. Let's see. But if you can't find Gruyere, and if you want to go a little bit less expensive, you certainly could use a Swiss cheese. You need about 7 ounces. Can you buy it grated? You can buy it grated, but just remember, when you buy cheeses that are pre-grated, they often have, or they always have, some kind of an anti-caking chemical in them. Or it could be some kind of a carbohydrate, you know, ingredient that keeps these from sticking together. I personally don't like to have things, additives like that in my diet these days. So I grate it myself, and then I'll take my Parmesan cheese and grate that super fine. And then that will go in. So it's about 3/4 of a cup. And mix those together in this bowl, so that then it's just a question of pouring a little bit over between the layers of your vegetables. Okay, so we have all of our ingredients ready. I'm going to in just a second go over to the stove and bring over our vegetables that are now going to be our mashed vegetables. So let's take a look at how this is doing. Okay, so I'm just going to bring these over. Put a nice towel down there. Bring these over for you. And what I'm going to do, first of all, I have to get it out of the way of my camera because that will turn off my camera. That steam really affects the phone. And then I'm just going to pierce this with a fork. And I can see this is super soft. So this is definitely ready to be mashed. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this sit off to the side with the cover on it. So once we get our rainbow dish built, then I'll bring this back over and then we'll finish that up and plate the two dishes together so you can see everything together. All right, now it's time. Okay, so today, I'm going to be using my cast iron pan just because I love how this looks on the table when I present it to everybody. But again, you can be using a square pan, 9-inch round cake pan, and the instructions are, of course, on the web, on the recipe. Now, we have our pre-seasoned beef, so these will go down at the bottom. And I ended up increasing the number of beets just because I couldn't get one really large beet. So I have a couple here. So they seem to fit really well together on this layer. And just kind of sneak those all in. Such a pretty presentation. Okay, there, we have that. And I've got my pink fingers. And yes, you could wear gloves if you wanted to. All right, now we're going to add about, let's see, I think I just want to make sure that I have the right amount of cheese going in between each layer. Oh, and by the way, you want to preheat your oven to 375 if you're using the 8-inch, well, whatever pan you use, okay? And I think we're going to use about 3/4 of a cup of cheese, between a half and 3/4 of a cup. So you just want to get a nice layer, okay? And that is going to help them to stick together. All right, so that's the first layer. Then we're going to use our sweet potatoes. Okay, so we're thinking of color as we go, right? And we'll use, this is easy, because I cut them in half, they're gonna fit around the outside evenly, and then we're just gonna layer them. And you can shingle them, of course, in the pan. We're gonna do that just so they overlap. So everybody gets a good taste of them. And I love this dish because it is so colorful. It's very unexpected. And it's one of those dishes that look like, oh my goodness, she worked forever on that. And the most time consuming part was just slicing each of the vegetables individually. That's it. And it's, you know, once you get it done, you could have this all laid out and ready to go with the cream on it for a couple of hours. It can sit, you know, in the refrigerator for a couple hours or even on the counter for a couple hours, and then you could bake it off. So you could do that. And that's it. That is our layer of sweet potato. Perfect. And then we'll add some cheese. Simple as that. And then our butternut squash. Really beautiful. I love using butternut squash in a way that's unexpected. It's such a beautiful vegetable. There we go. All right, perfect. I've got a little bit of salt and pepper there. More cheese, and then finally, the potatoes will go on top. save some cheese for the top layer. And then our potatoes. And we're going to press this down nice and firmly, make sure it all gets in there. And if it seems to be kind of, coming out over the top, just bake it on top of a baking sheet in your oven in case the cream, comes out a little bit. It should get super bubbly, but that's fine. It'll be just fine. Perfect. Now, if you want to be really fancy, you can make sure that the top layer is layered just so, but you are going to be covering it with the cheese. So don't worry too much. The cheese is going to cover up any mistakes or anything like that. So it doesn't, it will be a beautiful dish regardless of what you do. And again, super simple. All right. We've got that pressed down nice and tight. And then the last of our cheese is spread out on the top. Okay, and then we have our cream mixture. So this is our butter, our heavy cream, you can do half and half. You can mix a half and half and heavy cream. And then with the garlic and then the thyme, and we're just gonna pour that in there. And this is going to help cook those vegetables and they'll all have a wonderful creamy flavor to them. Make sure that's evenly distributed all around the top. I don't mind getting my hands in there. Perfect. And then that is going to go into the 375-degree oven, and that's going to cook for between an hour and an hour and a half. What you're going to be looking for, and I'll bake that after we're done with class. You're going to be looking for, again, how do you know it's done? You're going to put a fork in at different places, especially in the middle, make sure. And when that fork goes in, there should be no resistance for it to go all the way down to the bottom. You also will see the cream and everything bubbling up around your potatoes, so around your vegetables. So look for the bubbling. Make sure that when you put a fork in, it goes all the way in and out very easily. There's no hesitation. There's nothing you have to break through. It just goes right in. Then you know it's done. They're all cooked well. You're going to take it out of the oven and you're going to let it sit for about half an hour. You can cover it. Let it sit for about half an hour or so at room temperature, because you want everything to settle in. You want it to cool off just enough, and then it will be easy to slice and you'll be able to lift it out in one piece rather than having it sliding all over the plate. So that is one key thing to remember. Now, let me, I'm going to hold off on showing you the final result of that. Let's get our potatoes and our celery root all set.
Liz,
Now this is, yep.
Sorry, somebody is asking what size skillet that was.
That is you can use between an 8 and that's a 12-inch skillet. So if you have a skillet that can go into the oven, that's a 12-inch, you can use that too. So either one of those is fine. Okay, and then I'm just gonna get a little bit of heavy cream because we're gonna finish this with some heavy cream. So here is my celery root and my potatoes. Now, you can use a hand masher if you want, or if you're looking for a nice smooth texture, I would recommend your immersion blender. So I found that this tool is just so great for so many things. So I'm just going to pop this down and I'm going to mash everything together. And we're also going to be finishing this off with a little bit of heavy cream, right? So let me get this all mashed. And we've got the butter in there, the garlic, and it's mashed so perfect. So nice and soft. Oh, the smell of this is really amazing. I haven't put my chives in yet because those are going to be stirred in or put on top at the end. But this has a beautiful texture and color to it. Okay, and then we're going to add in some heavy cream. And if you want to add in more butter, you can do that too. Start with about a quarter cup and see how you like that. You don't want it to be too wet. Maybe your potatoes or your celery root are wetter than mine. So I like to put in the cream a little bit as I go. Good. Okay, so this is beautiful. I think I'm going to be wearing this before we're done. Okay, so I have that. I'm going to get myself a beautiful bowl to pop that into, and then we will serve that up. So here's a lovely little, I love to collect my enamel cast iron, and it's perfect for something like this. And so we'll just pop that in. We have this wonderful mash. This is going to be great. Now, if you have leftovers of this mash, guess what? If you mix this, combine it with a wonderful stock, you will have a beautiful potato soup, right? You could add to that some chicken or mushrooms. So, you know, if you don't eat it all at once, it can become another part of a really delicious meal. So we'll finish that up with some scallions on the top. Lovely. So there is our celeriac and potato mash. And then this, and I'm going to cut into this so you can see the side. You're only seeing the top, but let me cut into this so that you can see what the side looks like. And I'm going to tip it onto its side. And you're going to see all the beautiful colors of that rainbow. So let me just bring that up. I can do a little bit of a zoom in there. Let's see if we can find our zoom right in there. Whoop, something happened to my device. I don't know why that would turn off like that. Let's see if we can get that to recover. Paired device. I don't know why it did that. Let's see. Maybe it just will restart and see what happens. Anyway, better that it happened at the end than happening at the beginning. Let's see if I can select my device. It seems to have disconnected for some reason. Oh, maybe it ran out of juice. All right. Oh,
There you go. It's back.
yeah, I don't know why it's doing it. One device has taken over the other device. Let's just pair device. And let's see if I can get the phone to pop in. It should pair it. I think it just got too hot. Well, I don't know why it's doing that. All right, well, we're gonna ignore that. And I think you got a quick view over what that would look like. And I just can't seem to get this to come on again.
We did get to see how beautiful it was.
You did, good,
Yeah.
okay, because I definitely want you to be able to see that. Yeah, it's just not reading my phone for some reason. It's not happy unless I didn't have it on. Let me just see if I have it. Maybe that was it. Okay. Well, anyway, I want to thank you all.
Oh. Liz, now we've lost audio. Liz, can you hear me?
Her audio must have just been on the other device. Looks like she's trying to fix it.
Okay. You're welcome, Donna. Bye, Judith. Thank you.
Did I get that, Linda? I think I figured it
Oh,
out.
you're back now. You just came back. You're getting-
Yes, I closed my computer in a different, it all shut off. So
Okay.
anyway, thank you all. You're all so generous when I make a mistake. I think I have a device that I need to replace. So in the meantime, I'll see you in December. Have a great Thanksgiving. And I hope that you're looking forward to the holidays as much as I am. Linda, thank you so much. And thank you, AARP New Hampshire, for everything.
You're very welcome. And I want to remind everyone that our next cooking class with Liz will focus on holiday brunch. So please join us on Tuesday, December 17th at 2 o'clock for this fun class. And it was great for everyone to join us. Thank you so much. Liz, you've got lots of hearts and happy hands.
Wonderful. I'm so glad. Oh, I managed to get a close up there.
Yes.
All right,
Awesome.
everybody. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.